Ooh, ooh, ooh. WDBFradio.com. WDBFradio.com.
Welcome to Bucks on the Bookshelf with your host, Steve the Bookman Eisenstein. Steve the Bookman Eisenstein has been involved in buying, selling, and appraisals of rare books since 1968. This show has been designed with making money for the listeners in mind. More people know the value of coins, stamps, objects of art, and collectibles they do not own than the values of the books in their home library shelves. Now, here's Steve the Bookman Eisenstein.
Good morning, my fellow rare bookians, and welcome to the November 29th, 2025 live play of Books on the Bookshelf. Yes, Bucks on the Bookshelf. I'm your host, Steve the Bookman Eisenstein, and you are listening to us live on the WDBF radio networks. Got questions for yours truly or my guest today? Take out something to write with, take out something to write on, and copy down this number, 888-575-4394. That's 888-575-4394. That's our call-in number for your questions, comments, want to talk about your book business. We would love to hear from you. Prizes can be won in our trivia contests, etc. 888-575-4394. Speaking of guests, my guest today is Mike Redler. Mike is the founder of the Facebook group Autographs 101 and obviously is a specialist in autographs. But Mike also is developing AI programs for other business purposes. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking about autographs and AI and all the other things. But he's working on various AI projects in his own AI business, but also AI for the autograph dealer. Whoever knows me knows that I still cut and paste with scissors and glues. I still spell computers with a K, but I might not know computers, computer programming and all that. But wherever I go, I often wind up with some kind of mythological, Mr. Pragmatic nickname, with a little bit of intuition on the side. So of late, when you out there are reading posts in Facebook sites that are obviously being used to teach the rare book business to AI. I made a couple of comments about that. People agreed that that's the purpose of the post. And I'm going to say, quote somebody who is well respected in the field, and that's Dan Boom. He agreed. They are trying to teach AI. They are trying to teach the rare book business to AI. For what purpose? I guess for somebody to come up with courses or answer questions or things like that. But if anybody out there is connected with these experiments, we're going to be talking about that with Mike, because obviously he's not connected with the experiments, but we were talking about this. I didn't realize when we first spoke, when I was talking to him about being a guest on the show, that AI was his mainstay and autographs were the hobby that grew into a business like most of us. So there's going to be some interesting questions to pose. And although my experience in technology and things is not that swift compared to anybody's, especially his, we agree on one thing. Whoever's doing this right now, to put it in plain, simple English, the questions you ask, the scenarios that you pose to garner more information suck. Okay? Can't say it any other way. They are too far off base. And I'm going to use a line that Mike said, that when they garner all this information, whatever it is, rare books, how to make a better widget, how to do this, how to do that, with AI, a lot of the preliminary information that comes in is useless, conflicting, and so on. So we're going to have a discussion later today with Mike leading the discussion on what AI is going to do in the autograph business because he is creating that program, and how similar programs can be done in the rare book business and other things. If you have a business in general and you're looking for an AI expert, Mike sounds like he could do almost anything that, he sets his mind to do with this. So that's AI, but that's about as much of it as I can tell you about without anybody calling up and saying, "Hey, you don't know what the hell you're talking about." I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but right now, with what I said so far, nothing was wrong. So let's go to an area that I do know about, and that is autographs, books. That's what we do. Most of the time, we're talking about books, but today it's signed books, documents, and things that we as book dealers come across all the time. So let me give you some perspective, and I'll start out with a regional, as in a Miami, Dade County, Broward perspective of autographs and books. There was an author that wrote a lot of Miami stories. Jack Kofed, Kofed, was his name. We used to joke when we would go to the library sales in the 90s, and there were 25 or 30 of us book dealers out there on a line, and we would say, you know, rarer than the rare signed co-fed book is the unsigned one. So authors sign books. If you have somebody that's Hemingway-esque, Fitzgerald-esque, Albert Einstein-esque, so to speak, um, in an autograph, in a book, that's terrific, okay? But we don't run across those that often. And just because a book is signed, yes, it's always going to be a little more valuable than, an unsigned copy. But just because it's signed doesn't mean that, it's anything super special. It all depends on who the author is. Um, Another thing of late today, and I really want to hear Mike's opinion on this question, and that is, when I was in my earlier years in book collecting, book selling, I was really never a collector. I was always a dealer, dabbler. Um, um, we would talk about different types of signatures. So, what is it, the type of signatures you see in a book? Well, the simplest one is just signed. After that, it could be signed, inscribed, dated. Is it signed and inscribed and dated to someone that's an intimate or related to the author or related to the production of the book? That makes it an association copy. So the general rule of thumb was this. If you had an author that signed a book and it said, "Dear Bob, thank you very much. Your comment was whatever, signed and dated by the author," that was what you wanted. The thought was the more in the author's hand that's on that inscription, the better it is. Okay. Today, from what I'm gathering, observing, and have heard over the last couple of years, there's a big shift in that. And that is, it's easier to sell a just signed copy today than it is to sell a copy that is not what we would call an association copy, or a presentation copy, by the author. So if it's signed to, Dear Al, thank you for coming to the book show, it's not as good as if it was just signed. I want to hear that from Mike, but that's the gist of the conversations of late in autographs. Some of the other things you need to know about autographs: authenticity. Well, that is a world of its own. Today, if you want to sell something that's got an autograph on it, the plurality of people are going to ask for a certificate of authenticity from one of the major, authenticating houses. And even they're not perfect. But that's another story in itself. Who is the authenticator? You have to be aware that a lot of people just print up sheets of paper and authenticate it. Back in the day, we really didn't have that many problems with that. If I have an autograph, I guarantee when I sell it that the autograph is authentic. I've never really had a problem in a return of an autograph. So, it's complicated though. It's not cut and dry. If there's another funny joke with a lot of authors, if you have a check by an author made out to you for $10, there's a good chance that that $10 check is worth more than the author's signature in a book today. Some authors are just prolific signers and others aren't. It depends. Like when you take Thomas Harris, there's a lot of signed Thomas Harris material out there, but he also had a very strong reputation of not being a signer. Same thing with Gone with the Wind. She never wanted to sign, books. Thusly, signed copies of Gone with the Wind are quite rare. And I'll tell you another one. This is something I picked up from one of my mentors early on. There was a period in time, 20s, 30s or so, where it was not considered cool to go up to a musician or a celebrity and ask them for an autograph. So there are signatures like he used when he explained that to me, he was pointing to a John Coltrane signature at the time and said, it wasn't cool, so a lot of people didn't do it. I'll give you another factoid. It doesn't have to do with autographs, but it has to do with dust jackets. In the 1920s and 30s, a lot of decorators told people to take the dust jackets off their books. They looked better without the dust jackets. So, that's one of the reasons why there is a scarcity of dust jackets. And it's also one of the reasons that one of my fantasy dreams is to find somebody's grandfather, or maybe even great grandfather at this point in time, that worked for Scribner's in the 1920s and 30s, and his specific task was to print dust jackets of all the famous authors that Scribner's published at that time. And he saved a few of each, but we all have our fantasies. If you have questions, we have answers. 888-575-4394 is the number. And I'm going to do a trivia contest question right now. I found it's the reference, but when people ask me for a reference book, well, we're on a budget. What's the best reference book that I can buy on my budget? And I would always say, whether if it was Van Allen Bradley's, I would say Van Allen Bradley. But today, it's collected books by Patricia and Alan Ahern. It came out every couple of years. The edition I have is the 1998 edition. there is another edition that I saw that might be a little earlier than that, but it's got all the points. And that's the reason why you want this book. You know, it's the best one-stop reference book you can get. You get a glossary of terms, you get a bibliography to try and develop your own reference library. You get tricks of the trade, how to identify publishers' first editions, and other little tips like that. But you have the description of 15,000 books in their points. The prices listed are not relevant because the price guide is out of date. And price guides, even when they're in date, are just that. They're a guide. I once had somebody come up to me at a book fair in Fort Lauderdale and show me a copy of Margaret Borg White, the first issue of Life magazine, on the cover, the Aswan Dam. And he said, "What do you think this is worth?" And I said, "Well, you know, somewhere around $200 to $300 was a realistic price." "You don't know what you're talking about." And he proceeds to show me a magazine article that some guy said it was worth $1,000. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, take the magazine, offer it to the guy for 1,000 and see if you get a check, obviously, you know." Um, so, you know, collectability, the book is a great book. That's the prize. The telephone number is 888-575-4394. 888-575-4394. What I'm going to give you an abbreviation in book selling terminology. What I want you to do is tell me what the abbreviation stands for. The question: what do the letters A period E period G period stand for? AEG, the abbreviation. In book selling terminology, what do those letters stand for? 888-575-4394, and we've got a prize for you. And if for some reason you don't want that book, we'll find you another one. Um, Give us a call. Let's see if we know what AEG stands for. Remember, I didn't ask you to name the three ships that King Kong sailed on, but if you can, I'll give you a prize. Anyway, it's 10:17. Looking at the clock. I'm not, anyway. We are in the process, although it's not until March right now, we are in the process of getting ready for the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. I will say this every show. If you are looking for the best 1 day learning experience, or even 2 days, maybe 3 days if it's a long fair, that you can get in this business somewhere in this calendar year, unless you're out in the middle of nowhere times nowhere, there's going to be an antiquarian book fair in your area. If there is one and you really want to pursue this business, there is no better place to go for a day or two of learning that's not going to cost you, you know, tuition for registering for a course or anything like that. If you go in there and you are brand new and, you know, let's use the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair as an example. You come to the book fair because you're just starting out. You never sold a book, you never bought a book, but you want to. When you walk out of that book fair, you're going to have a minimum, if you do your due diligence, of 100 business cards. There's about 100 exhibitors or more. You're going to meet people on the floor. You're going to find out what they collect, what they want, and you will add to your client list. You'll also get a feel to see what people bring to a show. A lot of people that are new are very intimidated by book fairs. Don't be. You know, the people that bring the $10,000 and $100,000 books, they're there more for show and tell and to buy. Look at the dealers that are your regular, mom and pops like we are, and you'll get a better picture of the business. And on that note, I'm going to tell you very shortly, we're going to be joined by Mike Redler. Mike, as I said, is the founder of Autographs 101, the Facebook group. He's developing programs for the autograph world on AI as well as other businesses. And we will be back with Mike after these commercial words.
Welcome to Bucks on the Bookshelf with your host, Steve the Bookman Eisenstein. Steve the Bookman Eisenstein has been involved in buying, selling, and appraisals of rare books since 1968. This show has been designed with making money for the listeners in mind. More people know the value of coins, stamps, objects of art, and collectibles they do not own than the values of the books in their home library shelves. Now, here's Steve the Bookman Eisenstein.
Welcome back, book and autograph lovers. We will be joined shortly by Mike Redler, the founder of the Facebook group Autographs 101, and soon to be the developer of AI programs for the autograph world as well as other businesses. If you have questions for Mike or you have questions for yours truly, take out something to write with, something to write on, and copy down our call-in number, 888-575-4394. That's 888-575-4394. Now, this program is also replayed several times over the weekend. Those times are as follows. It will be replayed this afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It will be replayed tomorrow from 8 to 10 a.m. and 3 to 5 p.m. and also Monday from 1 to 3 a.m. So if you are listening to this program on replay and you want to contact us off air, I'm going to give you a landline telephone number, 305-868-5515, 305-868-5515. And the reason I give you the landline is I had the cell phone surgically removed from me years ago and never wanted it reattached. So, and also because we always hear that phone. I don't always hear the cell phone. So anyway, without further ado, Mike Redler, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to Bucks on the Bookshelf.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you for joining us. And I always start out my interviews with a question so the audience can get to know you. What got you started in autographs? An accident, osmosis, intentional? When did it start? Take it away from there.
Yeah, it started for me when I was a kid. I grew up in the New England area, so my family, we would go to a lot of sports games. We had season tickets to all the major sports leagues within New England, the Red Sox, Patriots, Bruins, Celtics. I was going a lot. There would be silent auctions, stuff like that there. My family would buy me stuff. And then I also would go early and get autographs from some of the players. So I always had a big rush going there and trying to get autographs from players, and just like any other kid would. And then for me, one of the biggest things that really jump-started me when I was in Little League Baseball, I was a pretty good player, never had any aspirations of going pro, but
what position?
I would play a lot of outfield, a lot of play some second base, obviously would hit as well. And also pitched a little bit. My grandfather on my mom's side knew a former minor league player for the Red Sox, and actually brought him to one of my games, and he watched me play. And then within the Red Sox organization, if you are a former member, they give you a mailing list of all the former Red Sox players, which he then gave to me. So I began sending letters to those players with the cards and having them send them back to me signed. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. And I was basically sending out over 100 letters per week.
Wow.
I was doing like different sports and stuff like that too. So I ended up finding some databases online. I expanded to the NFL. I expanded to the NBA, the NHL. and basically was, constantly getting these mail day feeds. And then that kind of spiraled into me starting Autographs 101.
Whoa, I got a million questions, okay?
Sure.
Just on what you said. When did you start sending out like 100 letters a week? How old were you? What year was it?
I would say I was probably about 13 years old. It was probably about 2013.
Okay. All right. There was a time period, I don't know if you heard the monologue or not. One of my mentors, his name is Jimmy Dore from Once Upon a Time Books in New York, was a jazz fan, and he was telling me about, this autograph. He had this dictionary of jazz musicians, and it was signed by various people. He said, "See that? That's John Coltrane's signature. It is such a rare signature because it wasn't cool at certain periods of time to go up to the jazz musician and say, 'Can I have your autograph?'" Have you heard that before?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's
Oh, okay,
definitely some
okay.
people that it's tougher to get their autographs. So when you get it, there's just not as many in circulation. It's like anything, the less quantity, the more quality.
When did it become a business? What was the first sale?
For me, I mean, I've definitely done some sales in the past, but it was never really like that big of a business in terms of, me making a full-time income on autographs. I've always had a regular job, but I've used it to be able to pay for certain things and to be able to elevate my own collection. So, maybe I'd sell something or trade something and then be able to get something I wanted better. And then also for me, turning the Facebook group is really what for me became a little bit more of a business and a kind of a full-time thing.
Yeah, yeah, that happens when you get 50,000 people. But that's kudos to you on that. So, okay, how extensive is your collection? Are we talking presidents, sports figures, Hollywood? If it's an autograph, I want it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty. I guess you could say I'm pretty liberal with what I get in terms of autographs. I like just collecting and having a wide ranging collection. There's definitely areas that I specialize in more than others. I would say I love sports autographs. I do have a couple signed books as well. Some of the major sports ones people might recognize. I have Tom Brady, Ted Williams, Satchel Paige. I have Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant. And I've got a lot more than that, but
Yeah, yeah. How are we talking 100,000, 200,000 autographs? How many?
I would say probably closer to like 20, 30,000 in
Okay.
terms of actual sheer quantity, not in terms of value.
Let me ask you a question that I occasionally ask on the program, and it's kind of a crying. Oh, just hang up on it. I could see from here it's garbage. Um, it's um, something that I sold. Of all the things in the world that I have sold, it's probably the only one I ever semi-cry about. And the question I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you the question, what would that go for today in your mind's eye? And what is it? The letter of confession that Jack Johnson wrote in 1939 for the Jack Johnson Jess Willard fight fix. I had all the original art that was used in the pictorial history of boxing by Sam Andre and Nat Fleischer. That letter was in there. Pick Magazine, who published the letter, had two originals of the letter, TLS's. I had one, and someone else had the other somewhere. Jerome Chauchet, who was the biggest boxing guy at the time, bought it from me. I was very happy with the prices I got, but that was in the 1980s. Is that a six-figure letter today? What do you think?
I would think so, just based on obviously we have inflation just from that point. And honestly, just with who has owned it since, I mean, getting it back in the hands of someone who's in that realm, that would probably even add additional value to it. So I'm assuming just based on who you sold it to, it's probably gained value just from being in that person's hands.
Yeah, yeah. I've tried to track it down. I've never been able to find out, whose wall it's hanging on at this point in time. But, anyway. Um, You are talking about developing or already developed an AI program for autographs. Talk about AI, its pros and cons, and then how you're going to apply that to what you are developing, how you've already applied it. I know the program's well underway, if not ready to be launched.
Absolutely. So within our Facebook group, we do have AI enabled. We only have it enabled for a chat session. So within our Facebook group, you're actually able to start a chat session with an autographed one-on-one chatbot it happens through Facebook Messenger. And it is already programmed to be able to answer some certain questions or redirect you back to the group if it wouldn't make sense to have AI answer some of those questions. AI is really great. It can give you a lot of great, frequently asked questions about the group or the rules. It's also really great for getting started with getting started. What do you need? What type of supplies do you need to be able to get started? What are some of the best pens to be able to get a baseball signed with or a book signed with?
Whoa.
What are the best markers on the market? So those types of things. I don't think the technology is necessarily there yet, or at least within this iteration, to be able to identify an autograph with 100% accuracy and be able to authenticate it. I don't think we're there yet. So I just want to preface with that. That's just not really within the technology yet.
I've been doing this for 58, going on 59 years. I've heard all kinds of things about signatures in books, where it should be, where it's preferred. We're going to go into that. But you said something I never heard before. What kind of pen? A Mont Blanc with a 14 karat gold tip? I mean, what is the ideal pen to sign a book?
I think you really want something that's going to have a nice ballpoint. It's also, you want to think about the color as well. How it's going to contrast with the page.
Hmm.
And also the kind of the theme of the book, right? So if I see a book that has more of like a villain in it, and this is maybe being signed by someone who is kind of playing that villain, maybe in the movie of the book, or it's just more of a dark book, maybe you want to get this signed in like a red ballpoint pen, and really kind of emphasize that feeling towards the book. Maybe it also plays off the cover. I also think that blue and black are obviously kind of the more classics, but can get really creative with it.
Yeah, it's a concept I never even thought of. I mean, I can understand if you said it's, initially, why would one pen be better than the other? It would last longer, it wouldn't fade, this, that, and the other. I got a question that I'm asking out of creative ignorance, okay?
Absolutely.
When you're talking to a chat bot that you've created right now, that's purely typing, or can does your chat bot have a voice?
So within the Facebook group, I believe you can speak to it, but Facebook is the one that basically it gave our group the ability to have a chat bot. So it's built into the Facebook platform. We basically gave it all the tools it needs to be able to answer the questions that we have. So I believe you're able to speak to it because you can do voice to text. And you could also have it play back those texts that it sends in theory via audio, but I don't think it actually is more of like a chat feel like you might get from like a chat
Well,
GPT.
Mike, I got that. That wasn't my question.
Okay.
My question would be more akin to this. If you want to be the only phone ringing in the room so you know it's yours, you use a motorcycle, a duck, things like that, okay? But when you have a voice, do you use any psychographics to choose whose voice you would use? I mean, is it a sultry voice? Is it a baritone voice? Who decides that?
So the person that sets up the AI is the one that decides that if it's an AI chatbot that's designed to have a voice, conversational feature. I don't know if you've ever used ChatGPT, but you can go in ChatGPT and
No.
speak to it, have an ongoing conversation. Every day at dinner, actually, I don't know. So one thing I have is I have an AI agent that makes my entire grocery list and then creates recipes for me. And then I have an
Wow.
ongoing conversation with it while I create dinner using the ingredients that it already asked me to go get in that grocery store that week. So we'll have a conversation, and I'm actually able to go into the settings and change that voice to whatever I want, whether it's a British woman, a deep voice man, or anything in between.
And you've never invited that voice to dinner, right?
I mean, it might be listening to me at all times, as they say, but
Well, there was it's been in the news, but I was somewhere, I don't know, what is it, whatever magazines we get, there were articles about the destructive nature of how some kids used AI to whack themselves. I mean, wow.
yeah,
I mean, I got a theory about that. Whether it was AI or something else, this kid was destined to do something. I don't understand that. I mean, how you can have a relationship. If I was going to use AI, I'd use it to try and pick lottery numbers.
I mean, you could do that. It'll only give you what's statistically most likely. But
Yeah.
AI is kind of like Google, right? I mean, you can use it to help your life and to figure stuff out. Before Google, people had to go back into books and look at maps and stuff like that. But at the same time, obviously, the
We,
internet's not a perfect place.
we got to hit a commercial break. Stay on the line. We will be back with more about autographs. When we come back, take it wherever you want to go with a topic. And we'll be back.
Now, here's Steve the Bookman Eisenstein.
Welcome back, book lovers. We are talking autographs and AI with Mike Redler, the founder of Autographs 101, and he has his own AI development business. If you have questions for us on air, copy down this number, 888 575-4394. That's 888-575-4394. If you have questions for us off air, 305-868-5515. That's a landline, 305-868-5515. No text. Mike, how can people reach you off air? What's the best way to contact you?
Absolutely. You can find us on Instagram. We are Autographs 101 group on Instagram. We are also Autographs 101 on TikTok, and we are also on Facebook. We have 50,000 members in our Facebook group, Autographs 101, and there's also a corresponding Facebook page as well. You can find us on there as well.
And if by chance you sign up for Autographs 101 today, and you have a reason for joining the group, besides your reason, say you heard it on the show today. We'd both love to know that. Okay.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, okay. I was going to say, if you have something you want to open with, go for it. If not, then let's talk about something that I think is an interesting topic. Do you have something you want to bring up? I can leave this for later in the show.
No, let's bring up what you got right now.
Okay. Signed books. As I went through, in the years that I've been in the field, things obviously change. Authors go in and out of vogue. You got thousands of dollars more for certain books that were first editions that were signed in the 1990s than you might get for them today. But somewhere in that time period, I've noticed something in the last 5 or 6 years. Now, I don't know if I'm very late in getting that memo. I think I learned about not wearing white clothes 4 years after the memo was written. So with signed books, the way it used to be was if the author signed the book and dated it, great. If the author signed the book to somebody and said, thanks for being here, whatever, and signed and dated it, it was more desirable with the more writing by the author. What I am seeing today and feeling in the market is people want to buy books that are just signed versus a signed copy that, got passed down from somebody at a book fair, regardless of the status of the author. Is that true today? I mean,
Yeah,
is
I think so. You know, people they want some simplicity so that they can buy something and not have it have maybe a to Steven or something like that that really just kind of takes away from the perception of, if my name's not Steven and I buy a book that says to Steven, that doesn't really jive with my collection, and I know that's kind of a merging of the autograph world and the book world kind of coming together because that's always kind of been the case for autograph stuff, but books kind of were an outlier in that case. But I think slowly as the age of people getting into the hobby is just there's more people from a younger generation. I think those worlds are colliding more and more as we continue on.
I like that word collide because I feel it is a collision in some areas. For example, a friend of mine who I share the booth with at the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair and who's been an autograph dealer, he's older than you and he started like you with 7 years old, David Gindy, one of a kind auctions. Um, I lost my train on that one. What was I bringing out? And I apologize for that. Um,
Sign books.
Yeah, on signed. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We would often have discussions about the value of a signed book in the autograph world versus the rare book world. And generally speaking, and I'm talking about decent books. I'm not talking about your average, signed book. These are better, well-known books. The prices in the autograph world will be lower than the prices in the book world. Why?
I think it's more because the people within the book world, they also add additional value to the aspect of the book and the quality of the book. Where for a lot of people within the autograph world, it's basically interchangeable with a piece of memorabilia. So if it's maybe if it's a sports book, for example, just to kind of make it easy, this person might value this about the same as they do an 8 by 10 picture. In that sense, it's more the value of the autograph itself on the item than the book plus the autograph combined into one price. Where someone who is an astute book, collector, they're going to want to have high quality books in their collection, and then also add additional value for the signature as well.
What would you say for people that are starting out in the business now? What kind of tips might you give to a beginner, especially with the broad, autographs? Autographs were always collectible, but today autographs are what, $1 billion industry? I mean,
Absolutely.
just for the sake of, I remember when I heard, what was it, the guys that were on the Enola Gay, you know, when they signed whatever they signed is more important than what I mean, the most of when they signed it, because they were going around to shows and signing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the biggest things are, when you're getting started, you want to be able to make sure that you have a community that you're able to connect with, that you're able to verify things with. Like in most things, if something's too good to be true, it probably is. And your reputation within an industry like autographs is basically essential.
Hmm.
One wrong move or one deal gone awry, and things are blown up for you.
Absolutely. It's the same thing in the book world. You are your reputation. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I've been doing this a long time, and so far I'm unblemished. But, nobody's ever said, hey, I have, no, I was going to make a joke about Audubon's Birds of America, but, that's another story. Um, what else about AI? I mean, I don't even know where to start this conversation. You and I were talking about what I observed in a Facebook group where it was obvious that they were trying to teach AI the rare book business. And the questions, what's the best way? What is the way to do something like that? How would you approach it? You're doing it with autographs, so what was the approach? Just the facts, please. We don't want garbage input. How do you avoid it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you really want to treat it almost like it's a brain trust, right? If you wanted to put together a board, if you were to say, of some of the most elite people within the hobbies, you would want to have some people that have different perspectives, but verifiable experience, and that can attest to their personal experience. They have the ability to recollect all these different facts, and then you're going to want to compile those. And then you're going to want to be able to train this AI for a while, given this data set. And then obviously we make tweaks here and there to be able to make sure on the back end that when the user ends up using it, it's a unified experience that's able to grab all these different, mental, I guess you could say, collections, a collection of great minds all within one app. And that's really what we look to build.
So that's what the mistake is that, and now I'm understanding more of the parameters of it. This group that I'm using as an example that's trying to teach AI asks very ambiguous questions. I wonder if it's intentional or they just don't know to ask better questions. Um, what do you think?
I think it's probably a combination of they're trying to increase engagement. So they probably want to use this to get more people involved, which that can be either, a content thing or, trying to train something, or it could even just be like they want more people engaging in their Facebook group. How do we get more people engaging? Let's just get some more posts out there and get people talking, right?
That's if that's the goal, you could do that with better things than trying to teach AI. I would think, because
I would
you're getting
agree.
all this garbage input. Who filter? Okay, is there a human? Like, okay, this question was asked, let's say 4 days ago, and let's say it's now a week later, and they've gotten all these varied, good, bad, absolutely stupid answers. Who filters that to, is that a human? Is that another AI bot that's filtering the AI? I mean,
It definitely depends how it's set up. I mean, you
how
definitely
do
you
you
could go
do
either
it?
way.
You're
Uh,
doing it the right way. You're a perfectionist, okay?
yeah.
So what do you? No, I could read people. It was a job requirement as an entertainment director, even long distance. So what are you doing to filter out the garbage?
For me, I'm not using user input to train anything. I'm using out input from other sources that I'm then feeding on the back end. So no one's feeding me stuff. When, if you answer a question we actually don't even use the question feature within the Facebook group. We just have users that message it back and forth within Messenger, because people find it annoying when they look at stuff and it doesn't make sense. And,
Yeah.
you get a post from something that doesn't even look like it sounds right. And you're like, okay, well, this is kind of turning me off from this Facebook group. So I made it optional. So put it just in the Messenger. You can start it off. It's one-on-one. But the user input that we get doesn't go into the brain trust of our AI. Our AI is built off data that's able to be then fed on the back end, so that the user experience is just basically getting the information, and being able to ask questions without having to decipher that through. There's definitely different logics. Like if you look at, Elon Musk Grok, for example, Grok is a huge platform, and Grok uses input from all of Twitter slash X. So, you can imagine all the things that are on X, they make their way into that AI system. Now, if you look at some other AI models that are some of the bigger ones, they only use things that are filtered and kind of gone through to make sure that they're accurate. So you can definitely have different varying opinions on that as well.
When you launch this program, you're talking about a January date.
So our January date's going to be for our new app. We're actually creating an app from scratch. It's going to be a 100% new social media dedicated to autograph collectors, sports memorabilia, celebrity memorabilia, like movies and stuff like that, TV memorabilia, and sports cards as well. It's going to be 100% new. It's going to have brand new profiles. It's going to have the ability to post. It's going to have the ability to post video as well. Basically, anything that within the Autographs 101 Facebook group that anyone's always wanted but never been able to have because Facebook controls the platform.
I love it.
I built it out myself. And so I
Wow.
did that 100% by scratch.
Wow. Are there fees involved with this?
So there, we do have a free model. So we have a couple different membership level tiers. So there is a free package that you're able to come on, enjoy the experience, get used to it. And then there will also be a $5 and a $20 a month escalating with more benefits as well. Some of the additional benefits are like giveaways and things like that that'll be happening.
Whenever you launch, I would love to have you back on the show for that. Whatever publicity you're going to put out, feel free to post it on my site or in Vintage Rare Antique Books. We love to help people spread the word about new things in books. Um, when you say giveaways, I mean, as an entertainment director, I always had a prize budget and I loved it. As a rare book dealer, it's easy to find prizes. What do you give away? I mean, are these things from sponsors? We got to hit a commercial break. Let's come back on that.